I'm Sam Mitchell, and these are my stories. Hi, folks. Having a good day today. And let me be the first to welcome you to Autism Rocks and Rolls. Now, before we begin, I must know that I am not a doctor or psychiatrist. If your son or daughter needs to be diagnosed with autism, please see a physician, at least based on my experiences. I also don't own the rights to these music. Both musics were found on YouTube and were published on December 2015 and March 2012. I also have some shouts to give. So the first shout that I must give is to the Bostics. I want to say thank you to my karate teachers, Mr. and Mrs. Bostic, for joining me on my last episode. If you want to join ATA in Bloomington, Indiana, they are the people to talk to. It's C129, a Black Belt's Journey for more information on that. I also must give a shout out to some of the people I met on a virtual speed networking conference. I want to give a first shout out to Diana Ashworth. Check out her book. It's called Diana Ashworth, My Story. She's a business coach and has quite the story to tell about her recovery to addiction. The next one I must give to is to Cindy Vallone. She introduced me to the program Best Buddies, which is a program about how someone with autism or a big disability will meet with someone else and you guys can become friends. Another one I must give is to Jeff Harry. He got me connected with Podit and Podmatch, which are two amazing sites that I need to check, that you should check out if you are getting started in the podcast world. I also must give a shout out to Alexandria Ruse, who is doing her best to get me on the Ellen Show, and to have my all-time favorite wrestler on my show, Mick Foley. Hey, if you write to both these people, we might be able to get it happen. I also want to give a shout out to my new friend, Maria Adele. Recently, I participated in a speed networking conference, like I said, and met her there. She's a special education teacher and has a 7-year-old on the spectrum. She is a coach of human design. She helps people be the best they can and works with them on how they are internationally designed. What a cool job, and I can't wait to collaborate with her in the future. Everybody, we are excited to welcome my guest today on Autism Rocks and Rolls. My guest, Peter Lantz. He lives in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Mr. Lantz does a design work for video games, creates art, and even codes. This is an ability that he has because of autism. Having autism has helped him focus, be motivated to have his dream job. I am so excited that you are here with us, Mr. Lantz. Welcome, and how are you today?
Doing great.
That's awesome, man. But before I forget, I also want you guys to go learn about him more. If you want to learn about him more, go to the website, peterlantz.com, and I shall put on there below, and you all can learn more about him. So now my first question to you is, what does having autism mean to you?
Oh, that's a tough one. I didn't even think about that ever. I think I always viewed it as, I do view it as a disability in my case, but I always thought like maybe it was the reason my brain was the way it was, where it has high powered left and right sides. But I think ultimately, like, I always have viewed it as I think I've started to see it as like, oh, it is a disability. But I always viewed it as something like God gave me, and to kind of help relate to people a little better. And ultimately, as that one interview you probably read about me, I do view it as a tool in that I can focus, and my work on computers is a little easier because I don't get impatient. Puts you in that position where instead of your mind working around all the complexities of life with their ups and downs, you're just laser focused on an environment where everything's really stable, which is what computers are. It helps you understand them a little better, I think, in that way. So I don't know if this is accurate at all, but that's what it means to me.
It sounds like you use it just as a tool to motivate you more. What else have you used that tool for other than gaming? What else have you used? As you said, it's a tool. What else do you use the autism tool, you could say, for?
I think it makes I think just probably due to the fact that it required my parents to like invest in having a speech therapist for me. We did a lot of exercises where I would have to put myself in the shoes of another person, and really what we do is I'd be given a short story every week, and I'd have to read through that short story. Then I would have to rewrite the whole story from another person's point of view. And what ultimately that caused me to think about a lot is, putting myself in another person's shoes. And I would say naturally, I'm probably not somebody with a sense of empathy, but I think through those exercises, I learned it. Maybe. I think also the biggest symptom of my autism that I can think of is, maybe I don't have any like weird habits that like really stand out, but what I do have is this thing where I'll just disappear in group conversations and just become unnoticed. And it becomes much easier to listen, I think, and to just learn more about other people because you're no longer talking about yourself, you're only listening to other people. And I've had a lot of people in my life that do ask about me a lot, and they really direct the conversation in that direction. It's really like, I've had the chance to be in the spotlight, but that's kind of what autism will do is put you in a listening position a lot. So
Yeah, you're just on the spot a lot, and you just don't know what to do. What were your initial thoughts when you learned that you had autism?
it's kind of funny. So my very first thought was like I started crying because I was like, do I have a so there's something wrong with me? Like, is this sort of like, is this sort of like being in a wheelchair or something? Like I started crying. And then immediately afterwards, I think I was kind of like, I grew up being told I was smart. Like I didn't have people that told me I was dumb all the time. I had people telling me I was smart. So I was kind of like, oh, maybe that's the reason I'm smart, like, because I have autism, or like maybe God gave it to me for a reason. Well, sometimes I kind of wonder maybe I would have been smart without it, but and really I shouldn't say that because I think smart people recognize how dumb they are. So I bounced back from it, just accepted it really fast. I knew it was a little different. Everybody is, but I was always told that what do you think when you believe that there's a plan for your life, it's easier, I think. And maybe I had a sense of security that doesn't normally come with that.
Yeah, when you know what you want to do, life treats you a lot easier. So, how do you think our brains operate?
I have no idea. I think I think technology is starting to work its way towards figuring that out, but really I don't know.
It's all
I've heard the autistic mind that the problem it brings to the table is your right and left sides not communicating with each other, and like they're kind of like rewired a little bit, and as a result your brain tends to take completely different routes than other people, which can make you really funny.
yeah.
Because the whole thing with jokes is it's when you put two things together that don't normally go together. That's what makes a joke, and so you tend to be a little funnier as a result. And that can lead to unique ideas. So, you can use that. But I've heard that's how autism works, and I also know that I have a harder time making decisions as a result of my autism. Like the frontal lobe area is impaired, so where other people would have an easy time making decisions, I don't. It's hard for me to work at a grocery store staring at aisles that need work done, and there's no clear cut solution to like, oh, what if you're dealing with an item that's where the package is broken? What do you do with it? Like, what's the procedure? Wait, there is no procedure. Yeah, I truly don't know how brains work though, and even science doesn't know. It doesn't know the whole picture like as of right now. So, but it's very dynamic, and I know that much. Brains change.
Even though we don't know, I will say those are some good assumptions, though. Even though we do what we want to do, and with you saying that we do make decisions a lot slower than someone else who just knows what to do off the top of their head. So I can definitely understand where you're coming with that. What would you say would be like the most rewarding and most difficult thing about having autism?
I think the mere idea of being weaker, like having a really obvious weakness, is probably its greatest reward. When you deal with people who, there's a lot of conditions for the mind that are bad, like whether it be personality things or bipolar or schizophrenia, just anything. Like you have more empathy for that because you're living with an issue with your mind. So I think understanding weakness is probably a good reward in its own, and having the empathy. I think also like those weaknesses make you a lot stronger in that while I might be slow to think, like to make decisions, usually I'll make the right ones, or at least better than normal decisions, because I have to be sure before I make them, because otherwise I physically can't make them because I don't know. My mind just doesn't jump to being like, go this way. I have to have a logical explanation in order to make a decision. Otherwise, I'm just uncomfortable. I'd say those are the greatest rewards of having it.
I think Carrie Underwood's song says it best. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, or what does kill you makes you stronger. I can't remember how it goes. Now, was there a difficult part, or do you think that it's beautiful as a whole?
Oh, I think it's difficult. I mean, the world's broken, so I don't think you can ever really look at the world and just call. I don't think the word beautiful probably like describes it accurately, but my point of view is very Christian, and so here's the Christian point of view
Yeah.
of this is that the world got screwed up, but what's beautiful about that is people in general tend to trample over broken things and only go for the things that are working. But what's awesome about God is he can take what's broken and make it like whole again or even stronger. Like he can take what's broken and like make it the greatest.
Yeah. Or
Like
fix
what
it up.
like the weak will become strong and the strong will become weak is kind of it flips the world on its head. And I think that is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
um so I do think autism, unless it's something that our brains are naturally designed to do, unless that's a quirk that's built into our code, I think it is a disability in the end. But why not use the things that result from it in the process? I guess that's kind of how I view it.
Now, would be like some advice you give to someone who just learned they had autism?
Uh, ooh. I don't know if I have a good. I only have generic answers for that. I don't know if I have any good ones. I remember. I feel like a common reaction to it is it becomes like the focus of your life. It's kind of like the thing that defines you. And I don't know if that's really like what it should be, but it's kind of natural when you find out something new about yourself. That's kind of like, that's major. You're like, oh, this defines me now. Like I'm gonna like get comfortable with this and tell everybody I have this. I guess there's nothing wrong with that, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
That's
I
really
always
interesting, though. You said that it's not like it shouldn't be like the most thing. Should it be like a part of you? Period. I mean, maybe you don't have to be like, "Hey, I got autism," but like,
it's okay. It's
you know what I
okay
mean?
to tell everybody that you have autism. That's in fact, like when I go to jobs, I will tell them I have autism. Like I'll tell my superior, just know I'm like this. Like it's easy to overwhelm me. I might say things that are way too blunt, which will offend you. Like I have this thing. Just know I have it, and you'll understand me way better as a result. Like, but the only thing that comes to mind really is just trusting God. And that's the generic advice, but there is a lot of security in that, I think, and that you have this for a reason. The reason that's generic is because it's a very simple concept that applies to almost anything.
And
It's
I,
always the simplest stuff that's hardest to learn.
yeah, I hear what you mean.
Yeah.
Simple. It's so simple yet so complicated. I always say that, and I firmly believe that statement. And you
Yeah.
also talk about God a lot. How's He saved you, as you'd say?
I don't have like a testimony that's dramatic, like where, I like did drugs going through high school and stuff and like turned to Christ and my life turned around. I don't have a story like that, but I think I focused on that a lot because it's just important. Like logically my mind is like God's important. He made me, and what's on earth doesn't matter that much. But I think in terms of the ways he saved me that I could see in my life, other than the whole salvation thing. I think the times when I felt like I was truly alone, those are the times when having God on your side all of a sudden becomes 10 times more important, where like emotionally, where it's kind of like in the times when you're truly alone, you aren't actually alone. He's just always there, and his presence is always comforting. And I can't say I've ever been alone in my life as a result. Like there's a time when I say this at the risk of making my parents look bad, because my parents are probably the people I look up to in terms of being selfless.
Well, that's
But there's a time I made them really frustrated because I would do this, just for multiple reasons. I exasperated them. Like one, I was having the classic like, "Am I really saved?" thing, like growing up, because I didn't really understand Christianity. And there's also this thing I would do where every time we ate out, I wouldn't eat the food because I was worried my parents were spending too much money on eating out. So I was exasperating them, and they got so frustrated with me, and every conversation I had with them resulted in a heated argument, and they couldn't make any progress with me because I was like, they weren't addressing what my mind was stuck on, and or they just couldn't, because I'd always think of another variable and had to have those variables answered to be calm. And so basically, like, and it's not like my friends would understand. It's not like a non-Christian would understand. Nobody understood. And ultimately, nobody really does understand you in your life. Like, the only person who understands you is sort of yourself, and then there's God. So, yeah, so those times when I was like alone and kind of like in my bedroom sulking, you know.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I understand you. So you talked about game developing as we talked a little bit. How did you learn about it?
Well, it's interesting. We'll find out. All right. So from the get-go, you probably read my article, but I'll repeat it again in case for the sake of listeners. So I always grew up like playing around with like game ideas. I was just obsessed with games. Like autistic people, they get obsessed over singular things like taking apart door handles.
Yep, I can relate to that, but continue.
Yeah. So me and my friend would do this thing where we would try and like create video games on paper where we have all these rules. And I would like to thank him for showing me that because that was really fun. And we had these things where we like draw our houses, and you could buy like items for your house and you just draw them in, and for a certain amount of currency. And you play you play games with dice. So it's almost like a really primitive Dungeons and Dragons, maybe, but it's had an artistic twist on it.
Art of the Dungeon and the Dragons backstage.
Yeah. And I found out Dungeons and Dragons was a thing, and that's pretty awesome. And then I also mentioned this in the article where I would often go on Microsoft Word and play with all the like 3D shape tools they had, where you could place little shapes on the document. And I'd basically make a little circle, and I'd navigate it through whatever like landscape I made with the shapes. And if there's a tunnel, have a little shape overlapping the circle. So it looks like the player characters walking through it. So, I didn't have access to any game development tools, but was still trying to make games in a weird way. And then Game Maker came along, and a friend showed me it. We couldn't figure it out. And then another friend showed me some games he made with it, where he basically swapped out images. Like he made a little Pac-Man game, but he swapped out like Pac-Man with something else. And so I was like, kind of like thinking about it a lot, being like, wait, I think I understand how this works. And asked my dad if I could download it, because you have to ask your parents about everything when you're growing up. And started just going crazy, building games in Game Maker, learning how variables work. That's coder term, don't worry about it. If statements. Started like developing my art style in it. And then during high school, shortly after I learned about my autism, we went to a tech school, and I learned graphic design there. So I learned my Photoshop and Illustrator, but there's also this program called the 3D graphics. I think it was just called game. Oh my gosh. As a digital animation and game design. That's the name of my program at college. Okay. Yeah. I went into that, learned my 3D tools, learned about Unreal Engine, Unity, also learned programming in the tech school. So my tech school basically introduced me to the idea that this was a valid career, and there's a lot to it, and it also fit me like a glove. And I went to college, and I really pushed hard to get into college doing this type of stuff, even when my parents were like, will this make you money? Because growing up, this is another God thing, but I have to bring it up. Yeah, I guess I want to bring it up too, but I have to bring it up because it is important that my parents pushed against me and wanted me to go into software development, because it's like, hey, you can support a family with this money. This is a career everybody's hiring in. And I really pushed against that like stubbornly, because growing up, I had this fear that I wouldn't be able to do a job that used my creative mind that I would enjoy. And I prayed about it. Like my mom like showed me, hey, just trust God with this. And I think we might have prayed about it, maybe we didn't, but during my time in the tech school, I realized while I was doing 3D art that it was exactly the same type of stuff I was doing when I folded paper shapes into 3D shapes, because a thing I was obsessed with is I was doing coding, I was doing just everything that I naturally did growing up, and I was like, I need to do something 3D related. Like, this is what got put on my plate. I'm going to go after this. Like, I don't know where it's going to go, but I'm going to go after this. And so I was stubborn enough, and they let me go to college doing that. And here I am now was doing it for a living. I just exited my job to make something for myself.
Exactly, man. I understand perfectly. Like you wanted to do what you wanted to do, and not, what your parents said. I mean, you weren't like hitting the hammer down, but you just wanted to try something, like you wanted to God.
It's kind of like that's where the
Right.
paved road is, I guess. And I want to go this way. I want to go this way. I want to go this way. Like this is where I'm supposed to be going. I want to go this way. So,
Totally.
and
I
I
can
did. I
relate
did
to
sort
that.
of. I'm a very stubborn person, so yeah, I think my stubborn side definitely showed. But I like to think that being stubborn isn't a bad thing. I guess if you're using it right.
I can agree with that.
This all needs to come with a big disclaimer that like my parents were awesome. So
I totally get it.
it's just when you're telling your life story, sometimes you always are kind of like, I think you always bring up the conflicts, and the way they raised me probably made me the person that went the direction I went to. But that stuff's always mundane. You don't ever bring it up. So
But it's okay. You can bring it up here. I don't care. What steps go into developing a game, and what's your favorite part of it?
I think that's an unanswerable question, actually, because
Why is
but
that?
I can give you some insight though into it. So one time there's a YouTube show called Extra Credits. I don't actually really watch it, but they described it perfectly in that when you're developing a game, it ends up looking kind of like Lego pieces strewn across the floor, and that there's just so like you think it's just like, oh, you design the game, you create art and you program it, and that's all the steps there are to it. And then maybe if you think about it a little more, you'll add the business end to it, like marketing. But in reality, each one of those steps compounds in complexity and just keeps unfolding into more and more steps that you would never ever think of in a million years. Like for instance, the font, like text displayed on the screen, you have to make sure it will show Chinese characters and stuff by like combining multiple fonts together. So I'll tell you about Castle on the Coast and how that was developed in general. So first, there's a prototyping phase usually where you're developing a game, and that's where you as a coder tend to screw around with like really basic shapes with the player character, and you just make sure that the game mechanics, like the bread and butter of the game, work and is fun to play with. As a rule, if a game is fun to play with zero artwork in it, it will be amazing to play when the artwork is added. If it sucks to play without artwork, it will still suck even when the art's put in. The gameplay, the saying is gameplay is king. It's not the whole picture, but it is king. It determines the direction your game's going to go. So there's prototyping. If you have artists on your team early on, you can have them prototype the artwork by making like a game without gameplay essentially. And later on, you can merge the prototype with the artwork and or art style, I guess, if the assets aren't reusable, and have yourself a fun game. So Castle on the Coast had a prototyping phase, and I don't know how much you know about the game researching me, but it's a 3D platformer. So you have a little character that jumps around collecting things, and I went through about 3 different rough drafts of level designs while building the game, each time kind of learning more. So we're still in the prototyping phase, and the levels looked really bad. They're all made of like really simple shapes. It was all gray. But each time I was building a level, I was like actually trying to build the final level of the game, like the final area where you actually play. Maybe it's like the first level you play, and that would actually be in the final game. And every time I failed, and I think I realized in the process I was still in the prototyping phase that whole time. So once you're done with the prototyping phase and you kind of understand how your level design should work and how your character moves around, whatever your game's about, onto blocking out the whole world that you play in. And it still looked really junky, but that was my plan, because if you focus on art too early, you end up cementing decisions and can't change them later. So I made this whole really janky world, and then one by one, each area I went through, printed out screenshots of it and drew over it, and then made 3D artwork on top, and then built 3D artwork and replaced all the jankiness, and polished the game like crazy because I was given a whole bunch of extra time at my job, and now we have Castle on the Coast. So
Exactly. That sounds like a really twisted but cool process.
yeah, I don't know if I described it very well, but if you're gonna take one thing away from that, it's that game development's very iterative. Like it's not like a process where there's a 1, 2, 3 step process to building a game. It's very iterative. It takes like retries of each step till you achieve the final goal. And
Yeah.
I think a game that tries to do a waterfall method where it's like you lock in certain phases and you treat it like, oh, first you have the designers, then you have the programmers, then you have the artists do their thing. You'll end up with something very generic or that just isn't fun to play. Yeah, so game development, you have to be comfortable iterating. And you also need to, place importance on the right things. Like me, I was trying to place the focus on gameplay. I didn't like just immediately jump into making art that looked really shiny and then attempted to make it fun afterwards. That's kind of the recipe for disaster.
As you said, it's not like a process. Do you like there not being a process about it, or do you think that's a challenge for you?
I think I miss the days when I worked a job and I was told what to do, and now I work a job where I have to tell myself what to do. But I think all in all, it's more fun long term because, like, what can you compare this to? I think it's really fun, essentially being like Batman, where you start developing gadgets for different situations because they're challenging situations to deal with. Like, yeah, I enjoy the process. That's the answer. I enjoy the process.
Got it.
I enjoy being the guy. I pride myself in this, in that I am the guy you could hire on a team that would sit down and really think about the production process for building a really good game. I'm not somebody who specializes in art. I don't specialize in coding. I specialize in the production process and can do a little bit of everything at the same time.
You just do everything at once. So there's some people like that.
I've always been kind of worried I won't be able to get a job because I'm so such a generalist, but I don't know. Maybe I could be a prototyper.
Maybe. So you once talked about how the quote, love was the only rule. What does that quote mean to you exactly?
My way of breaking it down is that it's a hard one to understand, but there's a Bible verse that I think cued me in on it, on what it means. And that is that God is love. So when you hear a statement like that, you always kind of wonder, why is that? That seems like a really weird thing to say God is. And I think what it means is this is why I think it means. I'm not a theologian, but and I'm not God either, so I might get it wrong. But
Sure.
It's very he's very orderly. He's an orderly being. And when you look at functional families, functional anything, there's always a sense of love between people. And all of creation out there, all of nature. I'm not gonna try and convince people to be creationists or evolutionists. Just everything out there, it works off of order at the end. And even when it's chaotic, atoms could be viewed as very chaotic, but they snap together in really orderly ways throughout that chaos. I think that's why love is the only rule, is because love by its very nature is orderly and everything out there is orderly. And if you don't follow that rule, you'll end up with a lifestyle that isn't desirable. So yeah, I think that's kind of what it means to me. That's a very cold analytical way of saying it, but that's what it means to me.
I never would have thought how the world could shape with love and order being the same sentence. So actually, that's really enlightening, I must say. It really is.
And I kind of stripped the quote, I think, from my company's Daniel Bryan Advertising's mission statement, love is not mission statement, but set of values. But I think when I saw that, I was like, oh, that's a really good quote. Love is the only rule.
Gaming, you've also said, gives you the power to focus. So how does it give you the power to focus?
Oh, did I say that?
You did.
Wait just a second. I did. I think if I said that, I think I must have messed it up. Well, I meant to say it was Asperger's does. So I'll tell you why Asperger's gives me the power to focus. Maybe.
Sure, we can do that.
I think that's what I meant when I said that. Actually, I don't know why Asperger's gives people the power to focus. It might be that when you're sensitive to noise, not noise, but a lot of different stuff happening around you that overwhelms you. I think you tend to be a person who focuses more. And we also have an obsessive bent. So that really aids me in developing games, because the process of developing a game isn't fun always. It requires you to focus on one tiny minuscule piece of what makes a game up for a few months at a time and play the same game over and over and over again, which really motivates me to make it fun. By the way. So yeah, I think autism, because you're sensitive to too much input you naturally focus as a result. Yeah.
I mean, I agree. I mean, you said Asperger, I think your point is valid because when there's so much going on, we don't know what to do. We really don't. When there's so much movement 24/7, it's too much to handle.
What's interesting is I think everybody, the more I develop the games, and like have run play testers through my work and see how they get confused. I've come to realize it's not I think like Asperger's people react more to that issue, but it's actually a pretty common. I feel like everybody has that same problem, but we have a more acute version of it. Like no matter what, people will get like overwhelmed if you throw too much new stuff at them. It's
Yeah,
only
but we're limited. Or
every freaks out when they're exposed to an environment where everything is new to them and nothing is explained. But like I think we react to that more strongly. It's probably pretty involved how it all works, but I've seen a lot of people react to my work being like, this is too much for me to handle. And I think that's probably because I sat down and listened to them and tried to figure out what was causing that to happen. I think Castle on the Coast probably turned into like a much better game as a result of like having those experiences with people.
So I'm gonna talk about this miscellaneous task you say, because you said that you like do like you have the power, but you focus on something so big, you tend to like not do the miscellaneous task. How come we should do like the big project or the task ahead or the thing that's assigned to us instead of the miscellaneous task first? Because I totally agree with you. I totally agree. We should do the thing that's assigned first, then do this mini thing like cleaning up Dr. Pepper thing. Wait.
I'll show you my room, like where I'm staying right now. Like I realized after moving I have too much stuff, and right before moving I think I started cleaning up my act a little bit and handling all the random junk in my life, because I was like, I had this huge project ahead of me and I want my life to be as orderly as possible going into it so that I can focus on the big project. So right now I'm trying to like sort through my clothing and like get rid of stuff I don't need anymore that I just never wear.
I hear you.
But yeah, miscellaneous. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of other people struggle. You want to focus on we want to focus on the big stuff that we're comfortable with. And as soon as we walk outside of that zone and try and touch taxes and stuff, we get scared. At least that's my problem. But that's a problem I experience a lot. It's hard for me to deal with real life and all the little details that have to be handled in it. So I have advice for that if anybody wants it. Like just write it all in a list and just focus on getting the list done. So now you have basically one task you're dealing with is getting the list done. And it's out of your head and it's on paper. So yeah.
We want to focus on the big picture. Wait for this little baloney to move ahead. Like go along. So I can totally relate. So you also mentioned that you're not the best at eye contact, and I'm not either. Believe me, I always tend to look this way for some reason or that way. So did eye contact ever get you into trouble when you were younger, and how did you improve it?
I can't think of a single instance in my life where a lack of eye contact hurt me. Yeah, it's it. Actually hasn't. Maybe other people have had like parents that, or like maybe a angry old person being like, "Hey, young man, you need to keep eye contact with me," and they keep slapping you or something. But I've never had that.
I always find myself talking to the floor, so I can totally relate. I'm always like,
I've always been worried at me. I always kind of worried people think I'm dishonest because I don't look them in the eye. But most people would tell me that I've been playing Among Us a lot. And when I play with people, they keep bringing up that I'm a terrible liar. so because I just don't like lying. So
you also mentioned about choosing your words carefully. And I had to do this too. So I could totally relate to this because I'm always scared. I'm going to say the wrong thing at the wrong time. I'm going to say the right thing to the wrong person. It's just those certain fears. So I could totally relate. Why do you think that people with autism or people like us have to choose our words carefully and see what honesty versus bluntness? Because that'll be a good episode just for you all listeners.
I think it's always good to choose your words carefully. Like it's better to talk less. So I think it's always good to choose your word carefully. Like make sure each word that comes out of your mouth is worthwhile instead of talking for the sake of
Vomit
talking. And
instead of
yeah.
don't puke the words out.
I think there's definitely, I will say, something that might be out of the ordinary is when you're upset and you're talking to somebody else who's as upset. Like it's good to like stop and realize like what things you tend to do when you're upset. Like, do you tend to accuse the other person a lot? Do you tend to shift blame to the other side? Like, stop, like snip those buds at the root, and maybe just say like just refuse to say those things that you really want to say.
Refuse to acknowledge the bad thing that's going on right now.
Well, no, it's not that. It's, in an argument, both sides are always wrong, is the thing. Like, both sides have messed up. That's always true in an argument. I mean, there's such a thing as like confrontation if somebody has a drug problem or something. I keep bringing up drugs a lot, even though I don't have experience with them, but good example. But and the other person may be dodging everything you're saying because you're like bringing up something that's really hard in their life to deal with. But that's not exactly an argument. That's an argument is when two people are yelling at each other, actively trying to hurt each other with their words. And it's good to recognize when that situation's happening and just realize if you're going to stop the argument, you have to acknowledge what you did wrong and try and understand what the other person wants, and get them what they want. So, and then the cycle will stop. Like, arguments look like two snakes eating each other. That's the anatomy of argument. So
yeah, I can see that. When you get to know someone, you just know it. You just know it so well. Can you name a memory where you were too blunt and honest and maybe actually hurt their feelings and you didn't like realize it, or you did and you were like, oh shoot, I'm sorry.
I don't know if this was the wrong thing to say at the time, but it's probably the most marked story I have, where while I was in school, yeah, this might be a good example. Yeah, this is a good example. So while I was in college, I was always this ambitious kid trying to like put together big projects. One of my schemes, I don't know, it sounds bad, but I was calling it a scheme. I had this scheme called Project Tower, and I was gonna build this game with a friend where we plays the two of us trying to climb up this tower filled with puzzles and stuff. And the tower would like launch into space, and it turned into a completely different type of level. It was crazy ambitious. We ended up scrapping the project, and it stressed out who there's this guy, this really gentle guy who wanted to join our project and like do illustration work for it, like kind of help design, like draw some of the textures that would show up in the game. And we tasked him with creating designs for book covers. I think there might have been book platforms or just books sitting in library shelves that had covers on them. I can't remember which. I just know I wanted him to design book covers. And I wasn't happy with his work. Like every time he showed me something, I noticed that I never felt a sense of order to his line work or like his design choices. It felt kind of like just slopped on there. And I think how it went down when I finally told him this was we were talking on the phone, I think, or maybe through Google Hangouts, and we were reviewing his work. And I think I kept dodging like bringing up anything negative about stuff, just being like trying to point out what I think should be done differently. I was being very gentle and nice because I didn't want conflict, because I'm somebody who tries to avoid conflict. And eventually I think it kind of came to the point where he just needed to know what was wrong. And I sat down, I just flat out told him, like, I can't sense any order in your line work. Like, I can't sense any order in these drawings or any thought behind them. I like laid it out really flat and really blunt to him. I think I remember hearing him crack up a little bit, like he almost started to cry a little bit. And shortly after that, he disappeared from school. And like years later,
you hurt his feelings that bad. No, I'm kidding.
Well, it wouldn't have, I don't know if I did or not, but I remember what happened was he came down with the case of what's the fear called when you're afraid of the outside world? It's not xenophobia. That's something different.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Is it called that though?
Outer fear. We'll call it that. Outer fear.
Yeah. Well, I think xenophobia might mean something else. but it was yeah, he was afraid of the outside world, and he dropped out of school. He moved somewhere else, I believe. And I think he like lost confidence in his artistic abilities. And what really sucked about that whole situation is I honestly believed he was like, of all the students in our class, he was the one showing the most improvement. Like, and so I was always kind of wondering, did I shatter his confidence or something? Like, should I have like layered my words with compliments, like start with a compliment, give some honest critique, and put another compliment at the end? Instead, it felt like what I did was I just threw a get good for like blunt critique at him
Yeah.
and didn't reinforce the sides that were working in his work, So I always kind of wondered, did I ruin this guy's life partially when that happened? And it wouldn't be 100% my fault because I was just one blip in his life, and people in general shouldn't respond that hard to one blip. So I'm assuming there's multiple things going on, but if it was, I feel pretty bad.
I
I
don't
feel
think
pretty
you
bad.
did.
I got in touch with him years later. Like one of my friends tracked him down, like hardcore, like happened to this guy because he just disappeared from social media, and finally found like where he was and got in contact with his dad, and we sent a few texts between each other, like through my friend. And I said I apologized to him, saying like, I'm really sorry, like if I hurt your feelings really bad back then. And he was very positive. Like when he responded, saying like he learned a lot. So it made me feel a little better that there's some closure to that. But when you're telling somebody that they need to improve, always make sure they feel good after you're telling them that stuff. Don't just the problem with always mentioning the bad things is if
You
a
don't know
person
if it'll become personal.
well, if all you hear is what you're doing wrong, you don't like you start to believe that all you can do is wrong stuff. And you also, and for the things that you're doing right in your work, you're never getting any feedback that it's working if all you get is negative feedback. So a mixture of positive and negative feedback is necessary to grow as an artist. And when you're giving negative feedback, you always want to make sure you mention what you liked about the work, like what to expand upon, not only to make them feel better about things, but also so you get better work, you want to reinforce what you're liking. So there's a very logistical reason to give positive feedback in addition to emotional.
I would definitely agree with that. And I'm saying, let me say, you're a good man for avoiding confrontational. I'm not saying I'm a confrontational person. I'm just saying that it's a hard thing to avoid sometimes.
Yeah, maybe it's not true. I mean, my parents probably feel like they're walking on eggshells with me, but yeah, maybe it's not true. But I didn't want to hurt his feelings, I think was ultimately the problem. I snapped from not wanting to hurt his feelings to just being like, oh, I need to be honest to get any progress with this
Or
person.
like, I need to be honest and shut up.
I just smashed him in the face on the opposite direction out of nowhere, and that's how it happened. Yeah.
Yeah. So I hear you. I can definitely relate to that. So you also, I learned, did homeschooling. So why did your parents choose homeschooling instead of a regular school?
I'm not sure actually. I need to ask them about that more because they started homeschooling with my brother who's neurotypical, and I never really thought about that till recently and asked them about it. Hey Dad, why did you guys choose homeschooling? 2 reasons. Okay.
One was that never taught, went into banking instead, and we had some friends that homeschooled their kids, and we really liked their family life and the way the kids could talk to adults very comfortably, and they got along with each other very well. And we realized that only talking to people your same age group is not normal in society. You need to be able to relate to other age groups.
Are you hearing all this?
Yeah, I heard it.
Okay.
What he said, right?
Yeah, what he said. He's my dad, by the way.
And secondly, public schools are a little bit anti-Christian and created problems for me when I was young. And we wanted our kids to have a more well-rounded background.
Correct me if I get any part of this wrong, but I think both my mom and dad recalled basically being brought up, like being taught that science and religion don't work with each other, and like just that whole mindset as all the time they went through school, that as they learned more, I'm getting this right, it was the problem like the whole thing with like science and religion not like being always taught, but like logic never
Theory
really.
of evolution was a fact. You never brought up any of the other evidence
Yeah.
against it. And the older I got, I didn't have any reason for not believing it. I just tended to dismiss Christianity without looking at the evidence.
Yeah. I always bring up, I'm not here to like convince people one way or the other, but like I think that is definitely like a reality where, you'll just get taught one perspective and have every other perspective just tossed out the window. It's always the non-Christian ones. It's always the ones that are very like anti-Christian, it seems like. My parents like became Christians later in life, not growing up. So they've had like a little bit of both perspectives. I'd say I probably can't say the same for myself, but in college I think I got the evolutionary perspective a lot. But I think something that's frustrating where you're going through college is nobody ever explains evolution like in a convincing way. they always kind of just make this assumption that you should just believe it right away. I was like waiting for somebody to like come to me and be like tell me convincingly why you believe this, and never really got that. I was like kind of like waiting for that challenge to my faith, because you need those challenges, you need to, in order to be confident where you stand, you need to have your viewpoints challenged. So
Yeah, I can totally understand that with having your viewpoints. I mean, sometimes you change your mind, sometimes you don't. So I can definitely understand that. So you said you went to college. What kind of help did you get in college for your autism?
I don't think I ever got any help specific to autism. The only thing I
good,
got
right?
was, yeah, that's good. I mean, I have high functioning. So in high school, I struggled a lot, but I didn't have any help in high school either. High school was more pronounced for having challenges with autism because writing specifically English classes, I struggled a lot with writing essays to the point where I was like, crying and stuff, like trying to get through papers.
If it makes you feeling better, my mom's an English teacher. She can help you with that.
I'm through it now, so I like to think I'm a much better writer now, like than your average Joe, because it was so hard and I had to grow so much. It wasn't something I ever, like any skills I have is something I don't take for granted. Yeah, I'd say that's where the hardship came. But in college, I didn't have any autism specific issues other than, your typical, you're not really, I think the autism specific problems in college came more in the form of you're a star student, but you're also like a social outcast in a weird way where everybody thinks you're talented and stuff, but nobody really bothers to get to know you for who you really are, was how I felt in college a lot. And I always get bothered when people call me talented actually as a result, because it's kind of like, well, do you know that I started early working on game development stuff? Like, do you know that I struggle with stuff too? Like, do you know that you can be somebody who's just as good as me if you don't give up? I really hate it when somebody looks at like my skills and goes like, I'll never be that way, because I feel like I've given that person an excuse to give up and I want them to grow instead. So I think that's, I think those are kind of the struggles you deal with autism. And maybe like closer to adult situations, I guess.
Yeah.
Like when you're dealing with learning a trade.
So you also mentioned that you have a humongous mentor named Richard Vandermeer. Why is he so memorable to you, and how do you remember him?
Oh, he was memorable for so many reasons. So I had him in college. I'm not in contact with him anymore. I hope he's doing okay. But so back in my tech school, I think he was the first person to acknowledge. He was the person who built up my confidence in my skills in 3D work. He's the person to tell me like, oh, you're badass at this stuff. Yeah, so there's this competition called Skills USA. It's basically a competition where its purpose is to build up leadership, but I think it's also, I get the strong impression it's also there for like technical skills to like encourage younger generation to learn technical skills like becoming an electrician, engineering. I don't know if they have a plumbing competition, but maybe HVAC, construction. Yeah, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Tech school.
Yeah, tech school stuff. and one of them was 3D visualization. 3D visualization is a big industry. That's where you can make most of your money. Doing 3D work is in architecture and stuff, not games actually, but I'm still going to games anyway. So I participated in that. That was a big focus of my tech school. And when I did like the trial run of the competition where they kind of figure out what students to pair up and what teams, basically the class I was in, they took the two most talented students and paired them together, and I was one of the two. And Richard Vandermeer told us that we kicked ass. I told my parents I wouldn't swear in here, but that's what he said. And
You're just quoting someone, so don't worry about it.
I am. And he was the person who was always there telling me I was really good at this stuff. And I think he exposed me to the world of 3D animation, like the industry, helping me understand it better. Another reason he was so memorable is he actually modeled the Iron Man suit for Iron Man 1 and 2.
Whoa.
He made the yes. Yes, he knew he had met all the actors, like he knew Robert Downey Jr. He had worked with the villain in the second movie. And sure enough, the description of him matched up exactly to what my mom thought he was like, based on interviews and like based on reading about him. He's very like a down to business man, very aggressive at getting a job done. The villain character. So I think it was really exciting to be around him, and he had like a lot of stories to tell.
Yeah, I think he sounds like he did.
He was the cool substitute teacher. Like
Hey.
that's like
That's the way to put it.
when our normal teacher was out, he was the substitute teacher who like everybody, you wouldn't be learning that day. You'd just be sitting around him listening to stories, essentially. But he was an important part of my education because he's the person who instilled me confidence to just go crazy and work as hard as I possibly could to get good at this stuff. So
That's good, man. That's really good.
Yeah.
So you talked about the Skills USA 3D animation and visualization national competition.
Yeah.
So you said you led your team. How did you lead your team at the competition?
Well, it's only a 2-person team, so I don't know if I was the leader necessarily. Maybe in any relationship, you usually have like one person who's dominant, and whenever 2 people want to be dominant, then you have arguments. I think I was the dominant person, so it was me and this girl who was really like a really good artist, and I was the person who dealt more with the technical end. And okay, so for context, in this competition, you're given 8 hours, and you have to produce a like a 10-second or 15-second animation, 3D animation based off of a prompt. And the way it would work is usually, this is why I would say I was probably more dominant, because I took the producer role, where I would sit down and storyboard the whole thing with the lady, and I'd be the person setting up the 3D environment while she would like model the individual 3D objects that go in the scene. I'd put them all in as she went, and then I'd animate the whole thing. And of course, this is a weakness in our team, I think. She would end up like sitting around not doing much because during the animation phase, it's pretty common in projects I'm in to like end up taking over too much, like having too much work fall on me. But that's the only way you could do it, really, I think, with this competition, because you can only have one file open doing the animation.
Yeah, you only have one file open.
So yeah.
Help you out.
Yeah. The way we made it work was she would do the 3D assets and make the place. When I was done animating, I think what she would do is she would go through the whole scene and apply like materials and textures to the whole thing to add like colors and texture to everything. Like, and say I think like a blank wall. Now it's like a blank wall with like boards everywhere. Like it's made of wood boards. So she increased the quality a ton when it got into her hands. And then I think she was also the person who video edited it all together after I was done rendering out the pieces. So rendering, by the way, is exporting an image file, like a video file, out of the 3D software. And I think we honestly both led the team. You're asking about how it led the team. I'd say like we both led it in that as soon as we were grouped up together and saw that we were both serious about the competition, we immediately sat down and took some project management principles we had just learned on a field trip to a college, like a sample class, and like discussed how we would work together and how each person, how we'd be able to keep both of us working at the same time, which is how we came up with our system. So yeah, that's how we led. We constantly we took each round of the competition as an opportunity to improve our workflow.
Yeah, I understand. You work together to get that common goal. So I could totally relate and understand that loud and clear. You also, I think, or you made Game Maker. So what is Game Maker, and is the castle game on there, the Castle of Chaos, the most popular game, or is there another popular game on there? And if you want to see that,
Castle on the Coast is made in Unreal Engine 4, which is what Fortnite is built from. So I'm definitely not the most popular person in that community. No, Castle on the Coast is not it's not a popular game yet, but hopefully we'll be changing that since now that the development side is done. Game Maker, yeah, I'll tell you about it. So in game development, usually you have, there's usually several pieces of software involved with building a game, but the core piece of software is the game engine. And so Game Maker is a game engine, Unity is a game engine, and Unreal Engine 4 is a game engine. And it's a piece of software where you can put all the art assets in, all the sound files, and program a game and string it together. And what's exported out that game engine is your game. And some people use ones that exist already, like Unreal Engine 4. Many big studios use it, or they make their own. Many big studios make their own pieces of software. So on the consumer end, as a gamer, you won't always know what the game engine used was. So it's really, not everybody, I'd say gamers most of the time don't really care what game engine you use. So I'd say the communities would be comprised of where you buy your games. So that would be like Steam.
Have you made any games on there?
Castle on the Coast is the only one. I've only made one shipped game in my career. Well, I've made some iOS games at an internship, but they weren't really things I was like, oh yeah, this is like a thing I put out there with by the sweat of my brow.
You should Castle make a game about stairs. I'm giving you an idea right now. Just make a game about stairs.
Stairs. Sounds like a physics-based game.
Just go. That's all I'm gonna give you. Stairs. Try to make a game with that. I dare you. So now, out of these bullet points in the art of autism, why you said about this information that this was the career and personal advice you gave. Keep building your skills. Don't give up. Be a good follower and don't gossip about people. Why are all four of those important to you?
Wonder where my head was at when I wrote the gossip thing. I feel like I'm bad at that actually, but I think I know what I was trying to say. No, let's see. I think where my head was at that time was I was in a workplace where I noticed where there was like lines between groups of people in my office. I noticed that like my coworkers were constantly analyzing my boss and saying things about other people in my workplace. And when I see those lines, all I see is conflict that doesn't need to happen. And I think also during my time in school, I would see teachers talk about each other. They'd use their status as a teacher as a sounding board to essentially draw war lines, I guess, with other teachers, like very political. And I didn't like what I saw there. I think that's why I said don't gossip, is don't create politics, because don't create politics that just don't need to happen in a workplace that's like meaningless.
You got enough controversy today. I don't think we need any more.
Yeah. And I say I'm bad at gossip because I feel like I came out of like my college experience kind of embittered, like towards like there's one teacher I really clashed with a lot, and we sort of made up at the end, but I think my bitterness was still there. I felt like it was unresolved, and every time I bring up my college experience, I always say this was really hard for me, like going through this person's class, and that's why I think I'm bad at gossiping, because I haven't gotten over that yet. And I think it's just kind of like when you go through a hard thing, it's just stuck in your head forever. So, but yeah, don't create politics, I guess, with gossip.
Yeah, don't mix those up.
And what was the other thing I said? Like work hard and don't give up.
I said keep building your skills was another one.
I think having a technical skill of some kind, something that we live in a world of scarcity. Like scarcity is the rule, and in order to get a job, you need to have something to offer that adds value to whoever your employer is. Or if you're even like an entrepreneur trying, like you're that type of person who likes to go out on a limb, you need to have something to offer the world to make money. My boss, well, I don't work at my advertising company anymore now officially, but I'll still call him my boss. My boss said that a company that makes money is a poor company. And what he meant by that was if you don't creating value, you won't make money. So just learn a skill. And it's really gratifying to learn a skill. I guess like I love learning more about game development. I love putting myself in situations where I have to learn more, and things get dull when I stop learning. So just keep learning.
Just keep learning. That's a good thing. I think learning is fun. And I think learning how the world like operates sometimes and how impactful it can and can't be is a exciting thing sometimes.
Yeah, and there's a lot of skills out there that are, I think if you were to make a list of professions you could pursue, I think you would tend to go like lawyer, doctor, engineer, and artist, maybe. And people always like veer away from the artist one. But the world is so much bigger than that. Like you don't need a college degree to be successful in this world. And you don't have to pursue the intellectual stuff. If you're that type of person, go for it. But
if you're not, you're not.
If you like working with your hands, there's you can make a lot of money being in construction and like
being an electrician,
learning how to fix. Yeah, be an electrician, just all those things. Like just the world's huge and there's like a lot of cool jobs out there that like they don't have enough people for. So
there is. I can agree with that.
Yeah, like that's something that the guy who did like Dirty Jobs, I don't know his name, but that's something he really pushes is technical trades. So learn skills, and you don't have to go to college to do that. College is expensive. We have this weird cultural expectation that you need to go to college, even if it puts you thousands of dollars in a debt.
Yeah, I agree. College isn't for everybody.
Yeah, like, break the mold. You don't have, I'm not saying drop out of school, but
oh yeah, I'm not saying that either. I would not say that either.
Make an informed decision. You may be able to just go to a tech school and be really happy with your life,
I can agree. Follow your passion.
Try to say like, yeah, just go where your heart tells you to go. But I think you could be like too selfish at times, but like you should be doing something you enjoy because you're probably made to do it. Like, yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So now these are just for some questions, Peter. So
okay.
What's your paradise meal and why is it your favorite or your favorite food?
My favorite food?
Yes, sir.
I don't know. I'm just going to give the generic one. It's pepperoni pizza because a pizza night is something I do look forward to.
Hey, that's
like
cool.
A good pizza. Yeah.
You like Papa John's pepperoni pizza, or you like you like the Jack's? Like, I'm just wondering what pepperoni pizza do you like out of everyone? Like Papa John's, Pizza Hut's pizza, pepperoni pizza, or store-bought pepperoni pizza, or
I think there's a place called Ardo's back where I used to live. I just moved back to Grand Rapids. I lived in Detroit the past 3 years in a suburb, Rochester, and there's a really good pizza place that my youth group leader bought from, and that was like the best pizza I had in a long time. I think it's called like Ardo's or something.
Oh, sounds really good.
Yeah,
sounds really good. I'll have to try it sometime.
I'd say the big chains, Domino. I really like Domino's and Jets. Some pizzas kind of like it's like store-bought pizza doesn't really agree with me. So
I gotcha. I hear you.
Yeah.
Some don't agree with me either. So I can definitely relate. So what is your favorite movie or TV show, and why do you like it?
All right, I'll give you one normal one and one really nerdy one.
Go right ahead.
The normal one is Psych. I love Psych because it's just a funny show. It's a really funny show. It manages, like, I think with most comedies, you end up with like a lot of like sexual humorous or something. Like it's kind of like that's the only way the show knows how to be funny. With Psych, it felt like the show was just really funny because it was just really funny. you know, he had the really smart characters who was messing with everybody. And and then my nerdy one is I really enjoyed watching Sword Art Online growing up. I really liked the first season of it and the first season of Sword Art Online 2, the gun arc storyline. And I think it's pretty personal why I liked that show, but I'll just say this. It's like, oh, first of all, I think it was probably one of the first animes I watched. I watched Naruto. A lot of people watch anime will know what that one is. And Sword Art was the first anime I watched where it felt like it had definitive beginning and end, and it went through it really fast. The story really fast. It didn't ever like diddle dally anywhere with the long fight. It just went from bam, 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 plot point to plot point, and it was awesome. And it also just showed like a relationship, you know, like a romantic relationship, and just how powerful those are. And despite some aspects of the show being like sexualized, I was still like just blown away by the fact that like it showed this romantic relationship in a really powerful way, and it touched people. I think like that really touched people really hard. Like I remember reading a YouTube comment online once. This guy talked about how he never kissed a girl because he was waiting for, you know, he was waiting for the one. I was like, dang, like the show got some things wrong, but it was still so right, you know?
Yeah.
Like romantic relationships are really powerful. So
Yeah,
um
definitely. They are powerful. And as a teenager, I could definitely relate to that. What has been your favorite vacation that you've ever taken? And why do you enjoy it? Why did you enjoy it very much? Or that specific vacation very much?
I'm not much of a vacation person. I'm always the home type of person who always first to just be on my computer making things.
Or a staycation guy?
Yeah, but let's think.
You could do one from home, like a staycation at home that is
No,
remember.
I'm gonna pick Disney World. I'm picking Disney World. I'm picking Disney World because you know Disney World's always awesome.
Yes, sir.
And I've gone there several times because my grandparents were very well to like they were entrepreneurs and very well to do, and they took me and my parents to Disney World several times. And I don't know how many times. It was like 3 times. And we went to California. We probably went to California like twice, right? Like we went to the original Disneyland a long time ago when I was too young to remember, and then we went to California Adventure. I've got a Disney place 5 times actually, which is crazy.
Dang.
I don't think not many people could say that.
The magic's there, man. The magic's there 24/7, ain't it?
I think Disney World was the one. I probably just have more memories of Disney World because we went there more. But I think going there, you know, as a game developer gives you like somebody turns
gives you ideas.
Well, yeah, I kind of have it's Disney World is a really good example of a place that will do anything to entertain the people there. Like they go to such great lengths that they even make sure you never see somebody pick up trash off the ground. And they never show people changing trash out because they literally like lower the trash inside of trash cans into the floor and unload it there. Like go to those lengths.
You don't see an amusement park goes to those lengths.
Yeah, it's like you go to a bathroom and the bathroom is themed around the area. And like there's like a Tangled isn't really represented too much in Disney World, but they have like a tower in the distance, and then they have a bathroom that's completely Tangled themed. So
wouldn't be surprised if I see like
keep you in that fantasy world. And
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if I saw a Beauty and the Beast style bathroom at Disney World.
It probably is. There's like a whole restaurant themed after Beauty
is.
and the Beast. I never gone. Actually, I'd like to go there. It's like they had like a whole castle I think they have like a whole like castle shaped thing where there's a restaurant based off Gustav's. I think the place Gustav like had his little song.
I'll have to look into that. So
I got the name wrong.
Now, are there any good memories that you want to tell our viewers about? If you do, why do you remember that memory the most? Now, before you answer, I would like a good memory and a funny memory.
Good memory and a funny memory. Oh,
Yes, sir.
do you want like one memory that's both good and funny?
Yeah, one memory.
Okay.
That can work. Or you can do 2 separate ones. It doesn't matter. Either way, I'm chill.
My funny one is growing up, I played with my brother a lot. We got along really well. And we had this whole like make-believe world we had going on where based off the toys we were playing with. And the villain of our make-believe world was this bird. It's not called a doll, is it? It's like a plushy Bird, and I think he's like the mascot of some like car place, and we called him Dr. Birdbrain. And Dr. Birdbrain, I think I was the guy who plays Dr. Birdbrain, and he always had like his army of machines and stuff. And I think my brother was probably like the good guys, and I think the troops are usually built like by Legos and stuff. Like we had all our Lego vehicles. Have these like epic battles that are like all make believe, and I always thought that was funny that we had this character named Dr. Birdbrain.
They should. That'd be a good villain. My question is the power he poops all over the place or something? Because he could just fly and just have bird poop fly down.
I don't remember if he had any signature moves other than his name being Dr. Birdbrain. I don't think he had any signature moves. He should have though.
He definitely should have. Now, what's the good memory?
I don't know why this is hard to think of because I do have a lot of good memories. Yeah, here's where my indecisiveness is coming into play here.
Take your time, man.
Yeah, I think I liked hanging out with. I grew up with really good friends. It was like three friends I always hang out with. So I think just the times when we had like a birthday party and we'd all play like Super Smash Bros together. Those were always good times. So yeah, I'd say just parties like that were always fun.
Sounds like a good time.
Yeah, they're really good friends. So Smash Bros. Smash Bros is always fun.
Super Mario Smash Bros for life, right?
But my favorite thing to do when during college, I had this thing where I always volunteered at the Game Developers Conference. Actually, and into my professional life too. And my favorite thing to do is this guy always brings his Nintendo system to play Super Smash Bros. Like all the volunteers will like play 8-player Smash, and they're usually have a few people that are like really really good because they're all gamers. So
yeah, definitely.
Some people are like pro game. Some people are like actual. I don't know if they're pro. I don't know if they're considered pro, like if they make like a living off of it, but they go to competitions. They're competitive gamers. So
yeah, definitely. It sounds like a good time, a really good time. Well, I think that'll be all for us, Peter. Do you have anything you want to say before we leave?
I have to plug my games. So I got Castle on the Coast. You should check that out on itch.io. You can purchase it there. Itch.io instead of .com. It's like spelled itch. It's on Steam. You can wishlist it on Steam. We haven't released yet officially. And also just check out my Twitter, Peter Lantz, like at Peter Lantz Dev, if you want to follow my next project, which is temporarily called Air Current version 2, where you glide around and grapple. It's a 3D platformer. So there, I plugged. That's what I want to say. And thank you so much for having me, Sam.
Of course. Have a great day.
You too.
Thanks for joining for this episode. Please tune in for another episode coming very soon. Hope you enjoyed listening to me ramble. Thank you very much.